Hi everyone. I made this little device. It's a rack and pinion assembly. And basically I made this to show you that you can take rotational motion and turn it into linear motion. And I'm going to go over just some of the points that you might be interested in as to how I made this, because it was remarkably simple to make, believe it or not. Late yesterday afternoon I was thinking, oh, what can I do to make a rack assembly? And one of the first things that'll stick out at you here is, you see you got the rack, what I'm touching right here. And this is the pin gear that's attached, well, not attached to, but drives the rack back and forth. But you need to be able to control where the rack is at all times, basically. You need to retain it. So what I did was I took 3 popsicle sticks, or tongue depressors, and I put them together, or stuck them together, and measured it with my calipers, and it turns out that it was slightly wider than the width of the rack itself, which made it a perfect vehicle to be part of my slide assembly. And then to retain it from going side to side, I used 2 more popsicle or tongue depressors, and I glued them to create a channel like this in my part, so that the rack would be guided. As you can see, like in this view, you can see right here how the rack is in this. You can see where the pops, I'm going to call them popsicle sticks from now on. Popsicle stick is glued to the other 3 that were glued together. And then I mounted that on a piece of the 1-inch angle aluminum with the screws that actually they come in the horn bag, the black gears that came with your motors. So I used those screws because they were perfect little self-tapping screws into the wood to mount that to that angle aluminum. Then for my motor mount, did the same thing. I'm using all the same process that you use to make your mini-me, essentially, except I used the 2-inch angle aluminum because I needed height from my base to the center line of my pinion gear. So I used the 2-inch, and I did the same thing we would do when we made the mini-me's. I made a cut from the top down a certain distance. See that? And I did the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to bend that back just by making a scribe. To cut that, what I did was I made a straight line with the scribe, and then I drilled a series of holes. I think they were 1/8 inch holes, as close together as possible until I reached that wall right there. And then I snapped it off, and then took a file and just cleaned it up to make it look pretty. So that's all it was for the motor mount. Yeah, so pretty easy assembly to make. It's pretty cool. Trying to show you as many views as I can. I really didn't run into anything that you know, was too dramatic. I mean, it went together really well. And you'll notice I have these little clip pieces right here. You can see them. They basically just fold over at 90 degrees to the rack. You can see that right there. What that is, it's a retainer, because if it's not retained, the rack could have a tendency to be able to flex like this, even though it's captured side to side by the channel created with the popsicle sticks. And but I just wanted to make sure that I was retained in this direction into that channel, so that the gear wouldn't slip in the pinion gear wouldn't slip on the rack. So let's see how this works. I have my receiver all set up to go. I'm going to stick that into channel 1, and I'm going to hook up the battery. Don't forget about polarity, the black wire outboard. Right, the black wire is outboard to all this. Let's turn this guy on. Turn my controller on. And this is pretty cool, because it actually works. Check this out. kind of neat, huh? Now this doesn't have to be mounted horizontal. It can actually be mounted vertical too, and you can actually, raise and lower something like that. So that's pretty fun, just doing that. So there you got it. There's your rack and pinion. So hopefully that helps.